So, as we've been reporting, CBS News projects Republican Glenn Youngkin wins Virginia's gubernatorial race against former Governor Terry McAuliffe. He is the first Republican to win a statewide election in Virginia since 2009. He addressed supporters last night.
My fellow Virginians, this is our moment right now. It's our moment for parents, for grandparents, for aunts, for uncles, to change the future of our children's lives. It's our moment to come together.
Okay, so we're going to dig deeper into what happened in Virginia with Julia Manchester, who's been following the race there. All right, so let's talk about this. McAuliffe, incumbent, incumbent in that he was governor once before. He campaigned on national issues, abortion, voting rights. Youngkin zeroed in on local issues, hitting McAuliffe hard on education in the last few weeks, but also the economy. Why did this strategy work with Virginia voters?
Well, Anne Marie, I think the reason why this strategy worked with Virginia voters is because it was something that was hitting them every day. It had to do it was a part of their everyday lives. So, for example, Glenn Youngkin, for a couple of months now, has been talking about cutting the grocery tax, for example. We have seen rising prices and inflation. So that is probably a message that really resonated with a lot of voters in Virginia. On top of that, you've also seen the Youngkin campaign doing a really good job with messaging on this issue of education and parents' rights, particularly in the school boards. Now, Virginia, Northern Virginia, Loudoun County in particular, became the epicenter of this debate over parental rights and school boards, with the debate over the place of critical race theory in the classrooms, as well as transgender rights in the classrooms, and essentially how much rights parents have over their children's education as opposed to a school board. So they weren't very much able to message on that issue and peel off a lot of these suburban voters that had been trending Democratic for a while. Terry McAuliffe, on the other hand, while he was talking about issues like abortion, like the economy, issues that impact Virginia voters mostly in their everyday lives, he spent a lot of the race talking about someone who was not even on the ticket, Donald Trump, the former president. Terry McAuliffe really tried to make this about the former president, pointing to the fact that Donald Trump is very unpopular in the state. Unfortunately for Terry McAuliffe, that strategy does not appear to have worked. So I think you're going to see a lot of Democrats this morning looking towards this race in states where President Trump or former President Trump isn't particularly popular. And they're saying maybe we should reevaluate our strategy on tying our opponents to the former president.
Yeah, and so while McAuliffe was trying to tie Youngkin to Trump, Youngkin was sort of threading the needle, walking a tightrope, whatever analogy you want. Donald Trump had endorsed him several times, but, Youngkin did not campaign with Donald Trump or actually any other prominent Republicans. And he was not critical of the president, but he was not overtly aligning himself to him. So I have a few questions about that strategy. A, do we know whether or not if Youngkin has now, that he's projected to win this race, acknowledged the president? The president did hold sort of a virtual rally for him. And how do we expect Youngkin to, play that relationship moving forward? Do you think he'll continue to sort of distance himself from Donald Trump?
That's a good question. I don't know whether Glenn Youngkin has been in contact with former President Trump since winning last night. However, we do know that President Trump is very much out there putting out statements and even fundraising off of Glenn Youngkin's win. So there's that. And in terms of whether Glenn Youngkin will continue to have a relationship with the former president, I assume that there will be some sort of a relationship going forward. But from what we've heard from Youngkin's campaign is that he will be focusing on Virginia issues and issues that impact Virginia. And maybe the fact that this isn't a federal race could maybe insulate Glenn Youngkin from having to deal with President Trump. I think in the midterms, during a lot of these federal races at the congressional level, you're going to see President Trump playing a much bigger role. And also President Trump will be starting to get involved with other gubernatorial races that are gearing up for next year. So maybe that can put some distance between Youngkin and Trump. But I think, at this point, he's really crossed that hurdle already because he's been elected. So, we'll have to see what this policymaking looks like under a Youngkin administration in Virginia. It's going to be a split government. You have the Democrats still maintaining control over the state Senate, but it looks like Republicans are poised to flip the House of Delegates. Winsome Sears, the first woman to be elected lieutenant governor in the state, she can play that tie-breaking vote for Youngkin in the state Senate. So it's a narrowly divided government, but Republicans definitely have the upper hand in Richmond now.
Yeah, and let me ask you about that. So we have the first, this is history making, the first Black female Republican, first female veteran, and first naturalized citizen to serve as the lieutenant governor in that state. How do you expect them to sort of work together?
I think this is obviously, like you said, a historic moment, for women of color in Virginia, for Republican women in particular, in terms of how she will work with Glenn Youngkin. I think it's interesting because Winsome Sears has proven to be very conservative. And on the campaign trail, it seemed that there were times where the Youngkin campaign sort of distanced themselves from Winsome Sears because she was appealing very much to that pro-Trump base. There was at one point after the announcement of the near total ban on abortion in Texas where Youngkin was saying, look, I'm pro-life, but I'm in favor of the procedure when it's in the case of the life of the mother or rape and incest. That's obviously different from the Texas abortion law. Whereas you had Winsome Sears at the same time going out and saying that she was in favor of the law and she would push for a law like that. Now, obviously, her campaign quickly backtracking after that, saying they did not believe a law like that could be passed in Virginia. But now that Republicans have so much control in Richmond, I'm curious to see how far they will go on a lot of these policies, these conservative-leaning policies. Democrats were warning that they were going to go far on the issue of abortion. It'll be interesting to see if they actually still do that, and if Democrats in the legislature will put up enough of a fight to stop it.
So quickly, before I let you go, what lessons should Democrats draw from this projected loss?
I think the number one lesson, I alluded this before, is not making localized or state races, even federal races that matter, about Donald Trump if he's not on the ballot. Focus on those kitchen table issues, those issues that are resonating with voters every day. You saw Glenn Youngkin do that. You didn't see Terry McAuliffe do that as much, and McAuliffe is obviously paying a price right now. I think that's the biggest lesson going forward. Another lesson I would say is, I think for Democrats, they need to watch this issue of education and parental rights over school boards. This is an issue that Republicans have been able to tap into and tap into it successfully. And I've been talking to sources at the Republican National Committee who say that they are ready to galvanize voters on this issue for their side. So this is something Democrats need to keep an eye on in other states as well.
Julia Manchester, thank you so much.
Thank you.